Hey guys, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in to another exciting show of East to West. Apparently, I have forgotten to switch out my glasses, so I have my sunglasses on that I can see because they're so light. I don't ever realize when I have them on or not, unless my wife says, "Hey, you gonna change your sunglasses anytime soon?" I'm like, "Yes, I got you." But anyway, hey, today I decided I'm gonna try to up some viewership here for my show. So I'm gonna start bringing a prop with me every day, every week to tape, and I'm just gonna hold it like this. I want to let it soak into you guys, because who's the number one team right now? Who's America's team? Right here, right here. There's a lot of haters out there, but there's a lot of love for them. Good win. I loved it. I'm teasing all my Bear fans and say, hey, you guys look pretty good, but they did. The Bears looked actually pretty good. They had a shot to beat the Falcons. I'm excited about that. But man, the news of the week, man, how about those Patriots losing to the Chiefs? And the Chiefs are not a bad team, man. They put up over 500 yards passing. That's pretty incredible. And that all ties into today's show about, you know, how we just think that everything is just a lock in and that we just assume that, the outcome, we already know the outcomes of sporting events, you know. It was exciting to see Kevin Anderson, a former Illini tennis player, make it to the U.S. Open final. He didn't win, but man, was it fun just to watch just the excitement of an Illini in the final. And it was exciting to hear and the people in the crowd were actually started an Illini ILL, which is kind of cool, kind of fun. You've never heard that. I've never heard that in all the years I've watched the U.S. Open. I've never heard, the Illinois. And at the end, when he was giving his speech, he thanked his Illinois team, which is pretty exciting. Illinois got a lot of good recognition this weekend. Won their football game, which is kind of cool. My Irish lost to Georgia, which is not so good. I think Mr. Kelly's term as coach may be slowly coming to a halt. But that's okay. Times change. So anyway, we go through life and we plan our life around events and we think, well, we've got it all figured out. We're going to, we know how the outcome's going to be. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we plan for it. And sometimes they come out completely different than what you ever could have imagined that they would. And sometimes in life, when we go through relationships and we sometimes have issues that draw us apart, we thought, man, I thought we were going to be buddies forever I found out he wasn't a Cowboys fan. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I love all football fans. I do. Some more than others. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But anyway, so you have a buddy and you think, man, we're just gonna be friends for life. We're just gonna have just a great time walking together, enjoying each other's company. And then something happens out of the blue. And then you guys start to drift apart. There's an issue that arises or an argument that happens or a dispute that happens. So this outcome that you think that you've had, of walking alongside this person for an extended period of time, obviously suddenly comes to a halt, and then the circumstances change and you just end up drifting apart from one another. Now, we have an opportunity to reverse that outcome, and that's called forgiveness and grace. And we talked about that in my church this weekend. It was just so profound to just be reminded that, hold on, that grace truly is redemptive. grace truly does allow circumstances to be reversed, to be restored, to even start fresh. You know, when we have grace for each other and we forgiveness for each other, and we can walk in that and continually forgive and understand that we are all human, that we all have frailties, that we all have hurts and hang-ups that affect how we interact with each other. You know, everything that's inside of us, all of our life events, everything that's happened to us, it's constantly trying to mold us into who they think we should be. You know, who those events think that we should be ultimately. But sometimes we have to push back on that. Sometimes we have to say, I'm not going to live in that fear anymore. I'm not going to live in that darkness anymore. I'm not going to live in the shadow of fear anymore, because it's just too destructive in my life, you know. I've heard some great quotes this week. You know, one of them is, you know, why are we letting man destroy what God holds so precious in his hand? And that's us. God holds us in his hands in such a precious, loving way. And I just feel that every time I look down at my grandson, EJ, and I know he doesn't know who I am now, but I know who he is, and I love him unconditionally, 100%. I loved him before he was born, but when you first see your child or your grandchild, and you just know that they're just so dependent on you for everything, it's just an amazing feeling. You know, it's just a feeling that doesn't go away. Now, as he grows older, I'm sure there's going to be a rebellious time. I'm sure there's going to be a time when, you know, he's embarrassed to be around Papa and all that, or with his friends or whatever. And I get that. I understand that. But now is the precious times. These are the times to really draw in and press in and just enjoy, you know, just being with him and holding him and loving him. And I just get so excited. I miss him today. I miss him every second I'm not with him. But anyway, just when I hold him, and now that I've held him enough and have talked to him, I think he's starting to slowly recognize my voice. Not that who I am, but he recognizes the sound of my voice. And he starts to look around, which is really, really fantastic to me. And it's just unconditional love. It's just, I think he feels that love that comes from me and his mom and dad and Nana and all that. It's just wonderful. And all of his grandparents and family and friends. I mean, he is literally the star of the show. I mean, he's just the traveling show right now, and I love it. I love it when he comes over. I love that I get to hold him and just hang out with him. Even when he's fussy, I love it. It's music to my ears. Just to see his little face get red and his legs get long and his hands get out. And I just imagine Jesus when he's holding us in his arms and his hands and we get fussy, he still loves us. When we're all red in the face, pouting and screaming about how somebody's done us wrong, and, you know, we're not going to forgive them and phooey on them, and we're going to cut them out of our lives and all that, you know, he still holds us in his arms and loves us and calls us to show love to them like he's showing love to us. He was the ultimate example of love. In so much that he laid down his life for us. You know, he clearly said that no greater love does a man have than to lay down his life for his friends. And, you know, I think sometimes it doesn't mean literally, you know, show your friends how much you love them by laying down your life literally. But I think that means, you know, laying down your resentment and you're wanting to hold on to that hurt, to show love to them and grace and forgiveness to them. Because sometimes, like I said, you know, when we get wounded, I know this fellow does. When I get wounded, when I get hurt, boy, I want to hold on to it. I wanna hold on to it and just have a pity party, feel bad for myself, feel like nobody loves me, nobody wants me, nobody cares for me. And then people will come and say, "Hey, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Nothing. Nothing's wrong. You know what I mean? It's just a vicious cycle that we have in our lives sometimes, and we just gotta remember how much God loves us and how much He wants to be with us and how much He wants to just really show us how to love others. I mean, if we ever get stuck in not knowing how to love somebody or how to forgive somebody or how to find the words to do it, just look at Jesus' life. I mean, when He was on the cross, dying, yeah, painful. I can't even begin to imagine how painful it is to die on a cross. Especially after being beaten so brutally like He was. I mean, He was brutally beaten, not just whipped. I mean, he was almost near death when He had to carry the cross because He was just beaten so badly. But yet in that moment, instead of being resentful and hurtful and taking it in and saying, "Oh, poor, pitiful me," He looks to the heaven and he says some powerful words. He says, "Lord, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." And that's just crazy to me. That's not human. That's not the human nature is to take a beating and say, "Forgive them. I forgive you." It's very hard. They showed a video at my church this weekend, which was really powerful on forgiveness. It was a gentleman whose mother had been shot in the line of duty by a guy, and the guy was just little when his mom died, and so he grew up all his life just hating this guy, just full of rage and anger, and rightfully so. I mean, this guy took his mother from him. I mean, he had a right to be angry and hurt and upset and just devastated. But he came to a point in his life when he said, "You know what? I need to be able to process this. I need to be able to move on. I need to be able to put this behind me in a sense. Not forget about it. Not forget about his mother, but just put it behind the pain behind him, so that he could walk in a new life of peace and grace and forgiveness." So he goes and he visits the guy, and he is so emotional that he can't even speak the words, so he writes them out. And he talks about how the guy took everything from him, and how the guy just ruined his life, and how the guy just, crippled this guy with pain and sadness, and for all these years, ever since he was a little boy. And you think the outcome of the video, where this guy is going to say, "How could you? How could you do this to my mother? How could you do this to my family?" And you would think that would be the outcome of the video, but it wasn't. The last thing he wrote, through his tears and through his hurts and forgiveness, was, "But I forgive you." And he showed the guy. And at that point, the guy on the other side of the glass just broke down crying. Yes, he still has to answer for what he did. Absolutely. But now even the guy on the other side of the glass can find some peace, knowing that there is grace and forgiveness that was found that day in this situation. And yes, the guy who lost his mom was still very sad, very hurt, very sad. But when you forgive somebody, it doesn't mean it's going to go away instantly. It means that there's a process that has begun to, cleanse that hurt from your life. Because if we carry around a lot of baggage like that, we're only really hurting ourselves because we're just wasting precious moments that we can have in life. And I know what you're saying at this. So we're just supposed to let bad things happen to us and just forgive and just keep letting bad things happen to us? Absolutely not. But when bad things come, we need to, first thing we need to do is emotion we should have is to forgive. It should be one of the very first emotions we should have. Okay, Lord, I don't know how to do it, but I need you to show me how to forgive in this situation. Because when you forgive, then broken lives become mended. You know, in our own lives, in the lives of those who have offended us or hurt us, and even those around us who are watching. Because you just don't realize how many sets of eyes are watching you every day, watching what you're doing, watching how you interact with people, learning from you, whether it's good or bad. You know, you have an opportunity in each situation to be able to touch so many lives. And we want to try to do that in a positive way. We don't want to do that in a negative way, because your negative reaction to somebody else, well, it can teach somebody else to react negatively, and they could just spiral out of control. You know, they could treat somebody else negatively, and then that person could treat somebody else negatively. But if we show positive reinforcement, if we show forgiveness and grace, and we try to really, you know, make that a part of our conversations every day, who knows who's listening? You may be having a conversation of forgiveness with somebody that's hurt you at a coffee shop, and the person sitting next to you may be listening and thinking, you know, somebody's hurt me. Maybe it's time for me to forgive. Or maybe it's time for me to ask for forgiveness. You know, if we've wounded somebody, if we've hurt somebody, we can't just say, oh, well, they'll get over it. No, sometimes they don't. Sometimes life just, you know, beats us down, and sometimes wounds stay and they don't heal until there's forgiveness that's been placed on that wound. So if we've offended somebody or been offended, we've just gotta keep saying, I forgive you. Even when the words don't come, like that gentleman in the video, even when the words don't come, write them down. Write a letter to somebody. You know, text them. Meet them for coffee. I've had to do that several times when I felt like I've hurt somebody. I've said, hey, let's just go have some coffee and talk. And I've had to ask for forgiveness quite a few times. And I've had to ask to forgive quite a few times as well. And I really know that when forgiveness takes place, there's just such a great peace that comes over everybody. The conversation is great. Instead of the conversation being strained and hurt and, you know, talking about the past, now we get to talk about the present and the future. We get to talk about sports and life and, you know, things going on in each other's lives now, instead of missing so much because we choose not to interact with them because of something that was said 2 years ago, which is just nuts to me. I mean, how can you hold on to something that chews at you for years and years and years? It's just mind-boggling to me. I tried not to. I mean, there's stuff in my life when I was a kid that happened that sometimes creeps up, and I'm just like, man, that sucked. I just don't understand why that happened. And you know what? I learn every time I think about stuff like that. I think, man, I may never know why it happened. So why am I dwelling on it? You know, it's not going to change the fact that it happened. I understand that. But once I start to pour grace and the forgiveness into it, even even if I don't get to actually physically do it to the person that it was involved in the situation, it's healing for me. It's healing for my heart and for my mind and for my soul and, for my eyebrows, because, you get the scrunch in your eyes and you get that scowl on your face, and it's like the emotions that you feel just come out on your face, and then all of a sudden you start like, man, my face hurts. And then you gotta realize, oh, I gotta shake it off, because you get stuck. We get stuck in that negativity. We get stuck in the hurt. We get stuck in the frustrations. But then when you start to put forgiveness and grace into it, then you start to smile again and you start to enjoy life again. And life is way too short to not try to enjoy. Ever since my whole cancer episode and walking through that, I'm not saying I'm perfect. Not saying that there aren't days that I feel grumpy and frustrated and sad and negative. But I really do try to live my life as positively as possible. Because, you just never know. You just never know. You don't want to end on a negative note. You want to end on a positive note. I always try to teach everybody, no matter who I'm talking to or who I'm walking with, I always have a favorite saying, and it's kind of silly, but it works for me. It's, I always try to leave somebody with a positive last. The last thing I say to somebody, the last interaction I have with somebody, the last act that I can do for somebody, I want to try to do it in a positive way. Because that one moment can change a lifetime for them. 10 to 20 years from now, they can be facing a moment of challenge, and for whatever reason, they can look back at that one single moment where somebody reacted positively to them, and it just changes the course of their thinking of the situation that they're standing in front of, and it could just end up, the situation could become positive instead of negative. We're all affected by how, life events change us and affect us, and the more positive we can put into each other, the I just think the better it is, because negativity sucks. It does. It's terrible. It's just terrible. When you sit around and you think, man, the world sucks, life sucks, my friends suck, I suck. I mean, it's just how do we find joy in that? I mean, we don't get to enjoy life, even if we're doing fun stuff, and we're just stuck on, man, that guy cut me off 2 weeks ago, and you're still thinking about that. I mean, it's just, you don't see what's coming ahead of you if you're too focused on what's happened behind you. You just see you miss all the cool stuff going by when you're stuck in the junkyard of the past. I just encourage you this week, try to let go. Like one of my favorite movies is Star Wars. Anybody who knows me is Star Wars. And there's a great scene in there where Luke is talking to his father, Darth Vader, just before Darth Vader takes Luke to see the Emperor. And they're having a conversation, just the two of them. And Luke says, let go of the hate. I feel the conflict within you. And Vader at this point says, it's too late for me, my son. But as we know, the outcome at the end of the movie, that it wasn't too late. It wasn't too late for forgiveness and grace to change a man's heart, to change someone's heart. It's never too late. It's never too late to change and to rectify a situation and to change the outcome of a situation or a friendship or a relationship or any kind, whether it be work, family, church friendship, and yes, there are hurts and wounds that happen in churches all the time. You know, it doesn't mean that just because we go to church and the church is going to be a perfect place where everybody gets along and it's la la land and, you know, everybody smiles and just gets along with everybody. I mean, we're broken people, no matter what building we're in, inside, outside. You know, we all have our hurts, and sometimes our hurts dictate our actions, and unfortunately, sometimes it can damage relationships to the point where one or both parties don't want to talk to each other anymore. But that's when we really need to dig deep and say, enough is enough. You know, let's be buddies again. Let's be friends again. Let's figure out a way to keep walking down this journey. Let's go have coffee. And I know I say that all the time, but I think a good cup of coffee is just such a great way to, and if you're not a coffee drinker, tea, soda, water, whatever you guys have in common, try to find a moment during the week when you can say, hey, let's go hang out for 5 to 10 minutes and just see what's going on and hang out and try to see if we can work this out. Because working out is better than running out. And when you run out of the relationship and you run out of the situation and you turn your back on it, then there's obviously no opportunity to ever resolve the situation. You know, I know sometimes it takes a lot of work, and sometimes the other person never forgives you. And sometimes life just works that way. But as long as you make an effort to open that door and to open the lines of communication, then you know you've done what you can do. You can let go of that. You can let go of that hurt and move on and just learn to start to restore your soul and your mind with love and positivity and just, you know, what God wants us to do and how the kind of love God wants us to show to people, which is unconditional. We gotta love people unconditionally. And I know with the current situations going on in the world and all the hatred and screaming and hollering and all this going on that sounds counterintuitive. But I just think love wins. I think love wins all the time. When we show love to each other, we just win. We win when we love each other. We win when we forgive each other. We win when we show grace to each other. We win when we hold each other upright. We win when we walk with each other. We win when we see victory in each other's lives. And with that, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for having a little fun with me at the beginning. But just remember, if you've got somebody out there that you need to ask for forgiveness for or forgive, reach out to them this week. Invite them to a cup of coffee, have a phone call, invite them to a meal, and just try to work this thing out. And remember, we love you here at East to West, and I always like to end like I do on the radio. Go out and make a stranger a friend, but definitely do not make a friend a stranger this week. We love you here. God bless. See you next Sunday.